Hello, everyone. I'm supposed to stay within the 3 circles here, so that's the reason I can't move around. Normally, I talk to a much older audience, right? And they've seen it all. Because they've been around, they've seen it all. But today, hopefully, it's a much more passionate audience who knows it all, right? So you're at the cusp of getting to the real world. So I'm going to talk about a topic that probably matters to you quite a bit more than you probably realize, which is communities and the relevance of communities to your daily lives. I'll start with the real world, why communities matter, why you need to engage in communities. I will step back or into the online world and come back into the real world. So that's the storyline that I will follow through. Hopefully, some of the concepts here are new, some you're aware of, and some we'll discuss as we go along. Now, why do communities matter, right? But before we go there, let's talk about what are communities. At least get the nomenclature right. We all work in teams on a daily basis, group projects, right? Study groups, clubs. You do that today. So think about teams, right? They're all organized around tasks, around projects. They're typically small. And they have a finite shelf life, timeline. They come into being, you do the task, and you depart. That's what teams are. Makes a lot of sense. They have a strong purpose in life, and you engage in them on a daily basis. If you take the approach of teams and take it out a little bit, it's actually a microcosm of a community at large. For community, broadly defined, you don't have a shared task, you have a shared goal or a shared idea, much bigger, much broader. Of course, there are tasks in between, but the broader vision is much larger. It's galvanizing around ideas. This time span for community is much larger, much longer. It's not a week, it's not a month, it's maybe not a year. And you engage in multiple communities along your life cycle. So that's something to keep in mind as we look at nomenclature. Teams that you do today, how we're going to take that beyond into communities at large. Now, why is this topic important to you, this audience here, right? Because if you think about it, you're actually really on the cusp of leaving the nest. You are. Despite your perception that you know it all, you've seen it all, you have all the answers, you actually are on the cusp of literally leaving your nest and your homes as you graduate, right? You'll most likely be in a different community, a different town, a different college, different state very soon. The sense of who you are will be redefined. You'll have new friends, probably a lot newer ones than you have right now. You may have some people who may follow you from gun, sure, but most likely new town, new college, new interests. So that's very important to understand. So as you go through this transition, you will run into many new communities around you. And most of them will be new. You will try to get in, you will try to engage. You may create your own as well. That's perfectly fine, and you will do that anyway. So it's very important to understand that communities now have a lot more relevance to you than you've ever had before, because you have the shelter of a home, of a family around you so far. Communities will impact not just your personal life, it'll probably impact your professional life quite a bit as well, and I'll tell you why in a second. Hence, think of communities as an asset you need to understand how to harness, how to orchestrate, and how to work with. Now, let me spend a minute on how communities impact your professional life, right? Let's say in the last 10, 15 years, since the new social models have come into being, right? The post-Facebook era, if you will. A lot of things have changed in the business world. You probably read about this, you heard about it and all of that, right? Communities have been around for a long time. ever since we've been around as human beings. But the impact of business has been much more dramatic in the last 15 years or so. That's a reality. Historically, if you look at any functions across an enterprise and organization, whether it's building a product, marketing, selling, customer service, all of them were very insular, looking inward. But social changed all of that. So it's very important to understand that. So if you are someone in engineering, you don't just build product based on what you think is right. You listen to a lot of input coming in, much more volume, much more intense right now. Through Facebook, to Twitter, you name it, multiple avenues coming in. So you need to understand how to harness, how to get the input, how to use it effectively. Marketing has changed dramatically as well. It's not the marketing that we did 10 or 15 years back. Social has changed that. So on for sales and so on for customer service. At the core of social is community, hence the topic is important. What is social? Social business around communities, the pivot, the kernel is communities. How people come together, how people galvanize. So hence, the knowledge of this construct, how you apply it, is going to matter quite a bit as you enter the real world. Now, let's understand, why do we engage in communities? Why do we care? What drives us to engage our participation, right? There are three simple reasons if you think about it. One, we all have a desire to belong. Affinity, right? We want to belong. It's alumni group, it's Gun High, it's Palo Alto, it's Stanford, whatever that might be. You have a desire to belong. That's innate to us as human beings. So we want to do that. So that's how it is going to be. It won't change. Secondly, some of us are altruistic. We want to do good. That's human nature. Very reasonable, right? Not for anything that you want to return. We just want to do good, helping people out. That's what we normally do. We'll keep doing that. Some of us are a little bit more material, if you will. We want rewards, tangible and intangible. We want ego gratification. Good job, thumbs up. Makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. Some of us want a badge. I'm the mayor of Palo Alto in Foursquare, as an example. Perfectly fine too. Some want tangible rewards, points, dollars, whatever. Regardless of these constructs, the fact of the matter is we engage. Our drivers are different, but we still engage. This is why we engage. Now, let's look at communities from a different perspective. The kind of communities that galvanize and how do they galvanize? It's important to understand that. Not only from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective, right? Again, these are not disjoint sets. These are overlapping Venn diagrams. So if you look at the anchor points, right, we galvanize around affinities, as I mentioned before, around associations, around groups, around alumni settings, whatever that might be. I'm a part of my high school group, my undergrad, my business school, and so on and so forth, many groups, just as an example. The second galvanizing point are interests. I love squash, playing squash. So I'm part of a squash club in Cupertino. I love movies. So I'm part of a bunch of groups that talk about movies, Hollywood and Bollywood. So I do that. That's how I am. That's normal. A second dimension is relevance. Communities have a personal dimension. Groups are personal. Our sphere it touches our lives in a much more personal basis. Some are professional. I'm part of a marketing organization and group. I'm part of SAP's professional organization. SAP is a big software company, and so on and so forth. And that's how it's going to be anyway. Of course, people may argue it's being blended these days. Personal, professional are coming more closer. That still happens, no question. And lastly, communities are also time-bound. Most communities today that we observe are persistent, meaning the community exists for a long period of time. And some are temporal. Temporal meaning they're much more transient in time. So stay locked on the temporal. We'll come back to that in the later slides. Now, despite how these communities are organized, right, and what the anchor points are, we all get value from these communities. The value may be emotional, intangible, makes me feel good, I can help out, whatever that might be, or it'll be functional. I ask a question, I get a response. Most in the professional world where the response is very important. And businesses try to drive and thrive these communities because you can literally save dollars trying to get the community to help itself. That's a common nomenclature. Now, let's play the role of a social detective for some time. Behave as a social anthropologist, right? And try to understand how really does social work. We talked about real world concepts so far. And now step into the online world and look at it from that perspective now. So making a transition to the online world now, right? There are a lot of concepts out there. Friends, followers, connections, location, mobile, bunch of constructs come in. Of course, some brands too that do a phenomenal job of helping us navigate communities and friends and followers. Usual suspects are up there, right? Very effective. Do a great job in solving problems that we had before we couldn't do a good job, right? We realize that as you go through your life, just map your life on a daily basis, right? You start your day in Palo Alto, Los Altos, or wherever. You come to school, or you may go to work if you have an internship. You go to a game or a party. So that's your daily life. If you map this, a few patterns emerge that is interesting for you to look at from an online perspective. That are the solutions we have today, most of them, 99% of them, are still fixated on known and persistent connections. Think about it. All the names that come to mind, it's all about talking to the same set of people all the time. If I'm on Facebook, right, as an example, I'm going skiing. I tell my friends on Facebook. This is what my kid did. I tell my friends on Facebook. So the point is, same audience gets to hear all that you talk about, whether they like it or not, because the connection is persistent. That's how it is. Nothing wrong with that, but that's how the model is. But the problem here is, this is detached from the reality of a real life, where we don't tell same people everything. In a neighborhood, we may talk to the guy across the street. We don't know his name. We don't need to. We talk to him. You come to a school, right? You meet someone on campus. You don't ask, who are you? Do you want to be a friend? You just talk. There's a context there. You go to a game. You talk to a fan. Same thing. You go to the airport. You talk to the guy next to you. You don't ask him, what's your badge? Where do you live? What's your mother's name? None of that. So that modality, there's a clear disconnect between the online world and the real world. The point here is, we have conversations around shared experiences that today is not really supported in the online world. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but keep that point in mind, temporal and shared experience. And prior friendship is not always a requirement to communicate. It just not is. We don't always carry a badge saying, I'm Salim, I like soccer, I'm a guy, I live in Palo Alto. We don't do that. So why does the online world expect us to do that? It's clear disconnect. But again, to be fair, it's a natural evolution. You solve the known friends problem first, then you get into the other parts of solving other tertiary aspects. That's how the world is, right? I'm going to show you a quote from a few years back, 150 years back. Lord Palmerston, a British lord, said this: "We have no eternal friends, only interests." The fact is, we keep focusing on friends. Nothing wrong with that, but we keep doing that. But interests are transient, many more, they're nomadic, and they're disposable. They keep changing in a life cycle. How come there's no easy for us to govern around interests? Just keep that points in mind as we go along. So our social graph today is very much organized around friends and followers and connections. but that's the social graph has just started to evolve, which hasn't even reached maturity yet. So if you look at social graphs, then how can you change that? What are the gaps do you see that have meaningful place in our lives today, right? Let's talk about shared experiences. What is shared experience? There's 3 dimensions. Location. We are here in Palo Alto. That's location. But what's the context, though? Context is Gun High, TEDx here. That's the context. So we all share that experience right now. This is a very known audience, meaning most of you know each other. But imagine a real world event or a conference or a game or what have you. We are there, and candlestick. We all are bound by the common experience at that time. There's no easy way to talk to each other. So location, the context, plus interest coming together. Now this matters because if you look at the networks created so far, they all were born and gestated before the mobile era. Think about it. Facebook wasn't an app. You were a company, the app came later. Twitter wasn't an app. The company existed, the app came later. So they're not truly leveraging location in a meaningful way. They're trying to do it, but location is still a side effect, a sidebar, another attribute for engagement. So if you rethink the world through the lens of location first, mobile first, the world will look very different. Arguably, it will look much closer to the real world than it is today. Now, the notion of temporal nomadic share experiences, right? They could be starting at home. Hey, I heard, why were the cop cars 2 blocks down? Can I ask someone in Los Altos? I don't need to tell my neighbor, hey, who I am, or the guy 2 truck car. I just need to ask. Tell me, right? Or I go to work. Who wants to grab sushi? Right? I'm going to go anyway. Join me. A virtual board, you're right there, look contextually, people respond. Or you go to a concert or a game. So allow people to, in a nomadic fashion, go between experiences easily without the confines of signing in, Facebook profiles, joining a group, subscribing, all of that. Still too much friction there to rethink the world, the way you live a life. The point here is simple. Social cannot lead life. It has to follow real life. What we do in real life can be scaled and may be more fun with social, not the other way around. So when we look at the world to what I'm doing these days, we look at it from a real life perspective and say, how can real life be enhanced by better social tools? So the point is simple. Guys, communities are here to stay. They've always been. They're much more relevant now. Resistance is futile. You have to understand, we have to understand how to engage effectively, how to understand the pervasiveness of communities, right? And how to meaningfully engage. And because they are very valuable, they provide value. We do. The context may change, but they do provide tangible value, right? So there's no difference there. Now let me end by giving you 3 simple ideas as to how to engage in communities. We talked about what they are, we talked about why do we engage, we talked about the value they provide to you, and how the online gap exists today, right? But regardless of all of that, let's come back to the real world again. Why should you, and how can you effectively engage in communities? The 3 H's: the head, the heart, and the hands. I use this philosophy in my life quite a bit, and it's pretty simple. People are intellectual, emotional, before they get to their hands, helping hands, before you help each other, right? What does it mean? If you're intellectually aligned, what it means is you listen to rational arguments. 1 + 1 = 2, makes sense, I'm with you. Simple, right? ROI is there for the business model, I get it, no question. It's better for the company, I'm going to do it. Some of us think that way. Not all of us. That's perfectly fine. Some of us are much more emotional. we react based on what we believe, what we feel in our guts. That's perfectly fine too. Right? So it's not an emotional discussion, it's not an intellectual discussion. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. This is important because this addresses a concern you have. Stated concern or unstated concern? It's very important to understand that. Are you an intellectual DNA or do you have an emotional DNA? And whom you're talking to, the audience, what do they have? Only then will the hand move. Will the hand shake hands with you? Will the hand do what you expect them to do? So this is something I've observed and it's been very important to me. So when you are in a meeting or a team or a group or community, make sure there's no single answer that only addresses one dimension of this life cycle. And arguably the hard dimension, like we will know, some of us know, is the toughest one to crack. Because emotional discussions are not finite, are not coded, are not codified. But it's important to understand that. So in summary, right, communities are very important. Look beyond what the market, the business are giving us today, the Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Great job, phenomenally successful. There's still a lot more lands to be conquered. And start with your life. If you see a gap in your life cycle in a day, and if the gap is not met, there's potential to disrupt something. Everything I just discussed, we just talked maybe all wrong. The point is very simple, guys. I'm telling you what I think makes sense to me, but it's up to you to challenge, not accept, try it. Right? Do different things, join different groups, join different communities. Don't say no, say yes as many times as you can. And then come with new ideas, new concept that makes sense to you. That's something we need to keep in mind. This is one of my favorite books from authors called Richard Bach, Illusions. In the end of Illusions, he says this, everything in this book may be wrong. And that stuck with me. I read that probably when I was in 10th grade or so. The point was simple. Don't take anything as gospel. Obviously, there are nuggets of information in there, probably valuable, probably relevant, but challenge yourself, challenge us. In my life today, I'm running a company called LoYakk, L-O-Y-A-K-K, local yakking. And we're trying to solve the shared experience community problem. And if you're interested in working with us, Julie is here, I'm here as well. Let me know, we'll find out if there's something we can do together. The point is simple, guys. We are just at the cusp of innovation from a social perspective. If anyone tells you otherwise, ignore them. Forget the valuations, forget the money that's been made, forget the success that's been had. Phenomenal, but we're just getting started. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully this has been useful.